So a little update on just personnel. Bryce was able to practice yesterday, which was encouraging. Isaiah's still not in practice quite yet, so doubtful is what I would say there. So we got 2 more days here before we play. So I never like to close the door totally because you never know. But Bryce is trending toward being available. But again, same thing. I don't want to declare that. Obviously, you could always have a setback here in the next 48 hours. But we're excited. I mean, like it's obviously a big game. Probably as good a team offensively as I've coached against in my 7 years, and that includes a couple national championship winning teams that were really good offensively in Baylor a few years ago, Kansas, and UConn. They're different than all those teams in the fact that probably mostly resemble Baylor's teams in terms of the style, really perimeter oriented. A lot of guys who can really shoot. So they probably give you those vibes as you watch them on tape. The key is they keep coming, and you can't ever let your guard down in terms of defending the three, getting back in transition, and obviously taking care of basketball. So you limit the number of extra opportunities that they have to score. So great challenge, no question. I think our guys are excited about the opportunity and are looking forward to embracing that challenge and seeing where we stack up against what's undoubtedly one of the best teams in the country.
With the years, how the year started, this almost has a chance to wipe the slate clean a little bit. Do you think about that at all going into this, or can you not get too caught up in that and just focus on the game?
Yeah, I try not to do that. Every game is its own entity in many ways. I get the thought process. I don't want our guys thinking that. There's a lot of really hard games still left on the schedule beyond this, regardless of how it goes. So I understand the gravity of it. I understand the need to be really well prepared. And particularly for our fans to see us play well against a good team at home. Nothing against the teams we've beaten here, but this would certainly be viewed a different way by the people who watch us play. So I really just try to focus on that. I've always been a process-oriented person. Really focus on, are we getting better? And I think we are. And you actually forced me to do some research because I try to stay away from emotion and feelings about things. And I feel like we're a better shooting team. I feel like we take better care of the ball. But you brought up the assist stat the other day, and I think we're at 103 assists through 6 games, and last year we're in not quite at 90. We've made significantly more threes to this point this year, and we have significantly less turnovers. So the data would also indicate that we're a better offensive team. We may not be quite as bad defensively as I probably felt we would be. We're not as dominant because we don't know yet how to be dominant. And one of the things you credit the last couple of years teams was being together for time. You could see how they were connected defensively. Didn't always equate to us being able to be as good on the offensive end because I don't know if the pieces necessarily fit for you to be good offensively. But we don't have quite the same stalwartness, I guess, on the defensive end, but we're certainly in a much better place on the offensive end.
I was talking with Javon, kind of just asked how he's developed seeing the game the way that he sees the game. He says he watches a lot of film. Is that something that you've noticed about him and got a lot of good point guards over the years?
Yeah, he it's kind of one thing to watch a kid on tape, and even another thing to coach him in practice and in games. But it's another thing, a whole different thing to watch how a kid functions as a player, as a student of the game. And probably as much as any kid I've ever coached, he sends me constantly video from practice or from other games that he's watching, ideas that he thinks maybe could work for us. And that's always good when you got a guy who's certainly always thinking about the game, even more so watching it and trying to learn how to get better. So I think that's what kind of makes him a little bit unique. It's not as common anymore that kids being as engaged with the game outside of playing it and practicing it, unfortunately. But he's one of the few that are.
Trey Alexander is a kid that you guys were in really early on. Had a weird recruitment. Goes to Auburn, goes to Creighton. What did you kind of think of his game to this point, and what was his recruitment like from your perspective?
Man, Trey was. I watched Trey Alexander as a freshman in high school, probably play as good of a high school game for a freshman as I've ever seen. I watched him in the state championship game in 2018, and I think his team was down like 15 points going into the fourth quarter. And I don't know if I've ever seen a 14 or 15-year-old literally will his team to a state championship the way he did that day, and that was quite impressive. Obviously, comes from obviously a big basketball lineage. He's been committed to the game for a long time. Not surprised that he's had the type of success he's been able to have, and that he's getting the attention that he's getting. His recruitment kind of like most of them, they take different turns along the way. And he was one of those that kind of got recruited through the pandemic, also. So there's a lot of strange things. Then the portal came, also, which was new. So I don't necessarily remember how it ended. I know he was committed to Auburn, and I don't know what happened that spring kind of between the schools, and he ends up at Creighton, and clearly made a good choice. He's had a lot of success in 2+ years now, and has put himself on the radar of some NBA executives. So I'm happy for the kid. I'm happy for his family. Certainly don't wish he has a whole lot of success in here on Thursday night, but I certainly respect his commitment to just making himself a really good player and helping his team win.
In the first month of the season, have you noticed a light switch with Brandon at all? Has anything gotten easier for him? Has he maybe been harder on himself?
There's a flicker. It's not on always, but there's some things there that you really like, that you feel like you can build on. But again, he's young. He's 19 still. He's going to have some moments where you scratch your head. You have to jump on him. But the beauty of Brandon is he wants to be challenged. He wants to be coached because he wants to be really good. All the great players I've ever been around have embraced the demand of being pushed. He's got a lot of untapped things still to him. I think he's a better shooter than he's shown. Obviously, shot free throws great to this point. He's an excellent passer, has always been. But I think I don't know if because of his humility, he doesn't necessarily give himself the credit for being as good as I think he should be able to be at this point. Not that he's not doing anything wrong. I think he could be more assertive, in my mind, and for our team to become the best version of himself.
Is that just his personality, that he's not as assertive?
A lot of ways, yeah. He's very passive. He's a great teammate. He's a pretty compliant person. He follows the rules. He does what you ask him to do. Everybody has some ego. He's got his lower ego as you can have, though. I think winning is a high priority for him, and so he wants to do whatever it takes to have success as a team. And if you watch him in high school, he played that way in high school. I always scratch my head when I watch him pass the ball against some of the guys I watched him play against in high school. But it's who he is. He'll grow to learn to be more assertive, but it's going to take some time.
You've had a lot of guys lead the Big 12 in blocks, even going back to your. Is there something that he does similarly to those guys? Is he different in the way he blocks shots? What's his?
Yeah, we're very different at that spot now than we've ever been. We're not as long and gangly athletic. Obviously, not having Miranda available has been a part of not having that presence from a length standpoint. But he does have a pretty good feel for it. He's more of a feel shot blocker. He doesn't really, wow you with coming out of nowhere and running down guys and all that stuff, but he gets himself in pretty good position. He's probably better at blocking shots on the ball than most guys are. Maybe that's because that's what he did in high school. It's kind of a habit. But a lot of times guys are really good shot blockers away from the ball. He's probably not as good away from the ball as he is on the ball. We got to teach him how to do the other. But, I was actually thinking about it when I watched the kid from Houston Christian going in and shoot a couple layups on us in the first half. I don't remember that happening very much before. Go back to even, young Kubasima and Mitch Solomon all the way through. Obviously having Musa in here, I've always had some elite rim protection. I felt, and it's not the best thing we do defensively right now.
True. Irons looked pretty, comfortable in the 2 games he's got to play off the injury. Did you expect him to look this comfortable that fast coming off the injury and stuff?
No, it's probably the thing that I was most probably surprised, but also pleased with was the level of comfort he appeared to play with. You never know. I mean, how a kid's going to respond playing in a game after being out for a while and not really being a part of rotation, and specifically, when it comes to your hand and how much he's got to use his hands in the game. So I was definitely, it was a welcome sight because we're going to need some more depth in our backcourt, especially with Bryce kind of working his way back. And he certainly can give us a different element of athleticism and ability to attack the rim than maybe some of the other guys.
Javon said part of why he thinks he's coming along kind of quickly is he was just super excited to play his first college basketball. Why do you think he was able to come along like that?
Yeah, he's one of those guys. I mean, he loves to play basketball. It's kind of like I talked to earlier. Like, kids don't necessarily love. They like the game. They don't love it as much. I shouldn't say that. That's probably unfair. Kids don't play as much. Maybe they like it still. There's just other things that they have available to them, right? And he's one of those kids that he just loves playing. And he was frustrated. He was probably more frustrated than I was, right? That he couldn't play the first few games, and certainly showed that he would have been able to help us in some way. Whether he changes the outcomes, I don't know that, but certainly could have brought another element of either defensive, again, I bang my head against the wall. If I could have put him out there, braced the guard Burton for 4 minutes of the game. Maybe Javon doesn't have to guard him the whole time. Maybe he's got a little more legs. Like, all those things go through your mind as a coach. But, it's behind you, and now you got him, and hopefully we can keep him healthy and have him finish the year.
With these Big East, Big 12 challenges, do they ask you who you want to play, or is it kind of luck that you've been getting Xavier and UConn and creating all these top 15 teams?
No, they don't ask, that's for sure. No one asks. Again, I think I sat here last year, and I think, I'm not here to, I watched UConn play right before we played them, and I said, I don't think they're ranked close to as good as they are. Like, I think Creighton may be similar. Like, they're better than a top 15 team. I mean, they're a team. When you can shoot, and if you guys look at their numbers, it is like they're playing a math game out there against you. I mean, they score the most points from three-pointers, number one in the country in percentage of their points that come from three. And they're like almost last in percentage of points defensively that they give up from two. They just put so much pressure on you every possession, and they got four, and sometimes five guys, because Kalkbrenner, who went 4 for 8 from three at 7-1 a week ago, right? So you got that element of it too. They're just really dynamic, and so they stress you a lot of ways. They make you figure out how aggressive you're going to go to the offensive glass versus getting back and trying to get your defense set. How many of those mid-range jump shots are you going to feel comfortable taking? Because you can make a lot of them if they keep making 30-foot threes. You're going to have a problem at the end. So it gives you a lot to think about, but they're really good.
What went wrong? I just saw the score. What went wrong for them the other night? And do you almost wish that they'd won? That way they're not coming in as
I mean, I don't. Yeah, I try not to. It's too much, man. Like, it's just too much to consider. We got to be good regardless of how they've played in their last game. We have to play well to win. They struggled, obviously, shooting the basketball. It's a big part of what they do. I think 6 threes is, like, I think their lowest number of makes prior to that was like 12. So you got to give yourself a chance. They made 18 a couple times, right? So look at some of their box scores, and they're making 18 threes, and the other team's shooting 7. I'm like, they had no chance. Like, there was never a possibility to win the game. I just think you have those nights when you're a team like that kind of relies on shooting to win, and most nights you're not going to have everybody shoot poorly. And when you have that many guys that can shoot, and that's what happened to them the other day.
Mike, when you went up to UConn last year, you guys lose, but it comes at an early point in the season against a pretty elite caliber team. How much do you learn about what exactly you have off games like these?
A lot. As a competitor, I wish we could play, all of our games like these. it's not realistic. It's probably not healthy. I mean, probably not healthy for me to do that, right? Just the amount of time you got to put in and give yourself a chance to feel like, you know, you got a good game plan and you're gonna have a chance to win. But you want to play the best because you really do learn how far away, if we are we? You know, how much do we really feel like our freshmen are able to help us come Big 12 play in a game like this, like a Big 12 game, you know, essentially. So is Brandon Garrison ready to go against a 7-foot All-American? Is Jamire Keller ready to go out there against a guy who's on draft boards defensively and Trey Alexander? Can we defend a 3 like we're probably going to see against teams like Houston and Baylor? Like, this kind of gives you an example of, you know, a month from now, we need to be better. However well we play Thursday, we need to be better at those things a month from now.
Facing, obviously you faced like Creighton was ranked 8th, now they're ranked 15th. How do you think that, how do you not let that affect you or affect your players or that just seems like a daunting task or a lot of NBA prospects, how do you work with that with your players?
Well, we play the Big 12, and if a small number next to a team's name is gonna make you fearful, you're at the wrong place. I mean, there's going to be a lot of those games starting. I think it's the 6th of January when Big 12 play starts. And most of the teams that you play are going to have a small number by their name, and so you just got to embrace the opportunity and not necessarily look at it as a daunting task. You have 18 chances to prove you're one of the better teams in the country, and so that's how we view it. The key has always for us been from November 6th, which obviously started out as bad as you could, to sometime in late March, hopefully, you're a much better team, and we just focus on that process every day.
Mike, do you know Greg McDermott that well?
I don't know him that well. I know him well enough. We've been on, you know, Nike has in the past. They haven't done it in a few years after, you know, COVID. They used to take coaches on trips. So I got to know Porter pretty well as well. Tremendous coach. You know, fascinating journey, like most coaches, right? He's in this league at Iowa State, and you know, has a son who turns out to be pretty darn good. And I think it's pretty well known. Like, he didn't think he was good enough to take to Iowa State. So Doug was going to Northern Iowa to play for Ben Jacobson, who's one of Coach Mack's best friends. And then obviously he took the Creighton job and took him with him. I think was going to redshirt him even. Like the whole story, like insane. And he winds up, I think they just announced they're going to retire his jersey, and he's playing in his 12th year in the NBA now. So really good coach. Teams have always been elite offensively. And obviously they were, you know, some would say a bad call away from going to the Final Four a year ago.
A lot of, every time a job's open, it seems like his name gets mentioned. What do you think has made him stick at Creighton the way that he has?
You know, I think if you go to Creighton, you see why there's a real commitment to basketball. I watched their games on TV. There's always a very good crowd. I think they take pride in that part of the country and supporting the teams. The same thing when we go to Iowa State, no matter how good they are, or if they're not good at all. You know, just the support. I think people, you know, coaches embrace that mindset where the program's important. Like, people show up to watch their team play, not necessarily wait until UConn comes to town, or, you know, Rick Pitino's coming to coach with St. John's. Like, people show up, just like I said about Kansas, they show up to watch the home team. Like, they don't come to watch the opponent. And there's an element of value there that drives you to make sure that you put out a good product. So I just think he's always been really, really you know, committed, pretty loyal. And obviously the success he has had there, I don't know all of Creighton's basketball history. I know Coach Sutton obviously coached there, but he's obviously done as well as anybody has.